Yo, Michael Saylor is going to speak to the board of Microsoft only days before the $3.8 trillion giant is set to vote on adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet on December 10th. Will this be the day that Microsoft unleashes its $105 billion cash holdings into Bitcoin? And will this trigger a wave of FOMO from the other 58,000 public companies to adopt Bitcoin? We've already seen over 130 public companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and there's rumors circulating that other giants like Meta and Dell are very interested in Bitcoin. Is the third largest company in the world about to join the FOMO race and adopt Bitcoin instead of burning shareholder value? We'll dive into that on today's video. Of course, I am not alone. I am here with our fearless leader, Nico. But let's just dive right into this story because obviously it's kind of a saga we've been covering. We covered this when it broke the other day. I think it was October. It was about a month ago. So here we go. We have the title here, a headline from Yahoo Finance, that Microsoft is going to consider Bitcoin investment in December, despite the board's opposition. Now, going into the SEC release, remember, we covered this last time, but it was very interesting when this news came out. We were mentioning the fact that MicroStrategy was actually named in the report. And you can see here, I highlighted just a portion that covers MicroStrategy. It goes as of June 25th, 2024, the price of Bitcoin increased by 99.7% over the previous years, outperforming corporate bonds by roughly 94% on average. And over the past years, the price of Bitcoin increased by 414%, outperforming corporate bonds by roughly 411% on average. And this is where they name MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, which is like Microsoft, is a technology company, but unlike Microsoft, holds Bitcoin on its balance sheet, and it's had its stock outperform Microsoft by 313% this year. And despite only doing a fraction of the business that Microsoft has, and they're not alone, the institutional and corporate adoption of Bitcoin is becoming more commonplace. Of course, talking about BlackRock ETFs and all of the ETFs following. And then this news came out. Michael Saylor to present to the Microsoft board next month about buying Bitcoin for its treasury. Now, why would Microsoft be looking to MicroStrategy to adopt a Bitcoin strategy? It's because Michael Saylor's stock is absolutely destroying out there. So we're going to start with the Microsoft stock here. You can see their year-to-date performance is 11.8%, and it's basically going sideways. All year, it's basically going sideways, and everyone on Bitcoin Twitter is watching MicroStrategy stock absolutely go nuclear. It's damn near parabolic here, going a literal 5x this year with a 592%. Like, look at this chart. It's absolutely insane. So obviously, every company out there is starting to recognize that maybe Michael Saylor knows something that they don't. Maybe they need to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Maybe this is how you avoid destroying shareholder value, because as we know, if you're holding cash, you're basically holding on to melting ice cubes. Though, we got this coming out of a Twitter Spaces this week in regards to the Bitcoin strategic reserve asset with Senator Cynthia Lummis. So I'm going to just play the clip here, and you can hear a little bit of Michael Saylor's thinking. You can hear what he's actually going to propose. And this is where we think that maybe this will cause the FOMO race when Saylor essentially open sources his presentation to the Microsoft board. So let's hear this.
Microsoft is facing a shareholder vote next month that would force the board to evaluate Bitcoin as a treasury asset, to which the board replied, "We already do evaluate it. This proposal is unnecessary." So just curious, do you think that these types of shareholder proposals are a good way or the best way to push Bitcoin as a reserve, or do you think there's other ways that folks on the call here could help catalyze greater adoption?
Well, first of all, I think it's a perfectly fine way to do it. And the activists that put that proposal together contacted me to present to the board. And I agreed to provide a 3-minute presentation. That's all you're allowed. And I'm going to actually post that online, and I'm going to present it to the board of directors. we also offered to withdraw that proposal if Satya Nadella would meet me, and I said I would fly to wherever he is and meet him in confidence in his office for an hour to discuss. But that offer was not accepted. So you will see me putting together the 3-minute proposal for Microsoft, and it'll get posted, and we'll send it to the board. And I think it's a good and not a bad idea to put it on the agenda of every company. It ought to be put on the agenda at Berkshire Hathaway and Apple and Google and Meta, because they all have huge hordes of cash. They're all burning shareholder value. And the approach of an Apple is 98.5% of the enterprise. The approach of Microsoft is 98.5% of the enterprise value is levered to quarterly earnings, and 1.5% of the value of the stock is tangible assets. And it would be a lot more stable stock and a much less risky stock if half the enterprise value of the stock was based upon tangible assets or property like Bitcoin. So I think there's a great argument to be made. I think shareholders should make it. We're preparing materials, and we're enthusiastic advocates. And if anybody's got an entree to the board of a company with massive amounts of capital, I'm happy to help.
Interesting. Again, guys, remember that the board has basically recommended that they vote against adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And if you really look at all the numbers, it doesn't make sense. If what Saylor just said is exactly how Microsoft works, is that, their stock is very, very much connected to their quarterly earnings. And if Saylor and MicroStrategy has proven anything, it's going to blow out all of those numbers that it has in the past. Again, it's going sideways all of this year. Saylor's up 5x. And so this is an easy way for them to increase shareholder value, obviously, because we all know the meme. Like, if you're saving in cash, you're losing at the very least 2% every year. We all know the numbers that roughly every 14 years or so, you lose 50% of your value in dollars. And everyone has the same problem, that you can't save in cash. If you have cash balances on your corporate treasury, you're losing value. And as someone that is a public company, your whole goal is to increase shareholder value. And Bitcoin seems to be that cheat sheet. Like, Bitcoin is the cheat code. You just need to add Bitcoin. It's the best thing. It's the best asset in the last 15 years. It's blowing everything out of the water. And if you simply add Bitcoin to your balance sheet, your life as a shareholder, as a board member, it's that much easier. Look at Saylor. He's proven this strategy. He's been putting on a masterclass in regards to how to add Bitcoin to your corporate treasury. And now, as Saylor was saying, it's upon all of these corporate CEOs, executive suite class members, to look at Bitcoin seriously, add it to their treasury, and this is starting to spread. I'm more than convinced that every top CEO in the world, Microsoft's the third largest company in the world, every top CEO, every top corporation in the world has to seriously consider adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. It's no longer career suicide to talk about Bitcoin. It's actually the opposite. If you aren't embracing Bitcoin, then you are really falling behind in the new age that is the Bitcoin age. Now, the real question is can Saylor in 3 minutes change the opinion of the shareholders out there at Microsoft? Obviously, Saylor's done hours and, maybe thousands of hours and thousands of hours on podcasts talking about Bitcoin. I'm sure he's done even more work on the back end, personally talking to executive suite members about adding Bitcoin. And like he said in that video, he even mentioned, like, yeah, I'll sit down with you, CEO of Microsoft, for an hour if you want. And then he's like, no, I don't got the time. Just go talk to the shareholders, give us a 3-minute shill, and we'll see what happens. So the other interesting part about this is what Saylor said at the very end of that he's basically going to open source. Well, obviously it's not fully an open source, but he's going to post this on the internet so that other people can hear this. And I think this is where the FOMO wave will come afterwards, whether Microsoft adds Bitcoin to their balance sheet or not. Obviously that's going to hurt themselves. They're basically shooting themselves in the kneecap, metaphorically, of course. Now, it's going to be interesting what other CEOs think when they hear the Michael Saylor shill, which is just a 3-minute presentation. So can Michael Saylor change the minds of the Microsoft shareholders? We don't know. Will Microsoft be the next Bitcoin corporation, or rather maybe the biggest Bitcoin corporation to adopt Bitcoin? Obviously, we don't know. We'll be seeing it in about 19 days what actually takes place at the shareholder vote. But if they do acknowledge and adopt Bitcoin on their corporate treasury, I really think that 2025 FOMO is going to be absolutely crazy. We're going to see all of the biggest corporations in the world add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And, you know, I was hanging out with a couple of Bitcoiners yesterday. There's actually like a Bitcoin blockchain summit in my city right now. And we all kind of are having the same feeling that, man, this time really does feel different. Like this time is actually different. Now that we have the ETFs, we have, you know, the US embracing the Bitcoin strategic reserve idea. It does seem like things have fundamentally changed. And, you know, I've been saying it for a while and you guys throw tomatoes every time I say it, but like the hyper Bitcoinization meme, it really feels like we're on the verge of that. It really feels like this might be it. Like maybe Nico and I won't have a job after this cycle because it's just going to be so commonplace and so obvious that you need to add Bitcoin. Man, it's getting crazy. Things are heating up and we're here for it. Like this is what we've been waiting for. Obviously, our goal is to get Bitcoin into as many people's hands as possible. Individuals is what really matters. People using Bitcoin as money as it's designed. But adding corporations to the Bitcoin movement is obviously going to be a huge signal for everyone else that they have to FOMO into Bitcoin. And this is where we are right now. We'll see in 19 days what happens with Microsoft. But I think even having this conversation just by the shareholders is more and more signal that other corporations are talking about the same thing. So guys, like, you know, hopefully you haven't took your foot off the gas because 2025 is looking like it's going to be an incredible year. So Nico, what's your thoughts on Saylor going to Microsoft, you know, him reaching out and the potential for a new FOMO wave from corporations to follow Bitcoin or MicroStrategy here, because it has seemed like we haven't really entered into the top realm of corporations taking Bitcoin seriously. It seems kind of, you know, smaller corporations doing it. Obviously, most of the Bitcoin companies are adding Bitcoin to their treasury. So we're still ahead of the curve here, but how big of a significance do you think it would be if Microsoft did actually add Bitcoin to their balance sheet?
I mean, it would be massive. It would send shockwaves all around the world. I had the opportunity to talk to Saylor in Nashville 2024, and I straight up asked him, I said, like, look, it's clear you're outperforming everyone. It's undeniable. Like you see the graphs he's posting, and MicroStrategy is leading the pack, and you know he's outperforming these tech companies like Microsoft, like Tesla, like Nvidia, like all these companies that like they make stuff, right? And it's so weird. You know, this company out of left field essentially has been going sideways since the 90s, and all of a sudden they adopted a Bitcoin strategy and they just 6x in a year. Like, of course, that's going to make heads turn. And another thing that I'll say is you could only take an ideological stance against Bitcoin for so long before number go up does what number go up does best. And fundamentally, you know, all these executives and all these boards of all these publicly traded companies, they are beholden to their shareholders, and it's their responsibility to provide value to their shareholders. And if that means adopting a Bitcoin strategy, they're not going to have a choice. So even if the Microsoft CEO says no, he's only going to be able to do that for so long until there are literal guys with pitchforks outside the office basically saying, why aren't you guys adopting a Bitcoin strategy? What Saylor said in that Spaces clip was spot on. You guys have to remember that whether it's Warren Buffett, whether it's Apple, whether it's Google, they're holding mountains of cash, right? And just with the inflation rate, just with the ideal inflation rate of 2 to 3%, if you are to believe that, you know, they're losing a tremendous amount of purchasing power every single year. And that doesn't need to be the case if they adopt a Bitcoin strategy. Now, do they need to go as hard as Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy? No, they can just put 1 or 2 or 3 or 4% of their cash or cash equivalents into Bitcoin, and that will compensate the amount of purchasing power they lose to holding fiat. So yeah, I mean, it's incredibly obvious. They're only going to be able to resist this for so long until public pressure mounts. And, you know, these are, at the end of the day, these are CEOs of publicly traded companies. And because they're publicly traded company, they're beholden to their shareholders. And if enough of their shareholders say, hey, what's going on here? How come we're being outperformed by MicroStrategy? Like, we're Microsoft, you know, like we're one of the biggest software companies in the world. What's going on here? We're Tesla, you know, we're Google. What is going on here? Why is this stock outperforming us? There, you can only resist that for so long until shareholders say, you know what, enough is enough. You have to at least, you know, adopt some type of Bitcoin treasury strategy. And I'm just talking about from my own personal perspective, you know, me and Opti's small business, Simply Bitcoin. Like, having Bitcoin on your treasury is a cheat code. I can't emphasize that enough. It's a cheat code. Your runway just extends over time. It's the most surreal thing you can ever imagine. And I can't, like, and for a company like Google or a company like where they just have piles and piles of cash, I mean, like, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Well, why hold fiat if you can hold something better? Why hold fiat that is designed to lose purchasing power over time versus holding Bitcoin that is designed to increase in purchasing power over time? Like, one of the best things that Microsoft or all these people could do to provide shareholder value, specifically in a Bitcoin bull run, is get them exposure to Bitcoin. And it doesn't mean that they have to go balls deep like Saylor. It could just be a few percentage points. It's going to offset the purchasing power that they're losing through fiat, and it's going to provide exposure, you know, to Bitcoin. Like, it's obvious. It's not rocket science. So yeah, I think they're going to be able to resist this for a little bit, but not in the long term. And one last thing, like, because I know probably a lot of people are thinking this. Why are they resisting the inevitable? Well, it's because Bitcoin makes you look bad. What do I mean by that? So if your job is to essentially, like, manage money, if your job is to essentially, you know, you have a bunch of clients, they're wealthy, and you essentially provide financial services to them. And the reason you have to do that is because we lived in this really effed up world where you essentially have to become a part-time investor or outsource that investing to someone else just to maintain your purchasing power. Bitcoin solves that completely. So the whole financial industry, you know, comes into question, because all of a sudden, if you're like a wealthy individual, like, and I've had this conversation with them, where they're just like, so you're saying all I have to do is just buy Bitcoin and put it in self-custody, and I'm going to get a 20 to 30% return on a yearly basis without having to pay a money manager a fee? And I'm looking at them dead in the eye, and I said, absolutely. They can't believe it. They're like, this is insane. This guy's crazy. This guy, you know, because if not, you have to get into hedge funds. You know, you have to pay, you know, you have to pay these wealth management banks fees just so that you get a specific return. Just by buying Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, put it into self-custody, you're going to outcompete all of that. Like, unless you're telling me you're getting a 30 to 20% return on a yearly basis, who else is giving that type of return? No one. It's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a superior asset. So I think a lot of the resistance comes from that. It comes from people trying to protect their moat. But like I said, you can only resist that for so long until the public says, you know what, guys, like, it can't be that, like, and it's like what Seth for Privacy said on like Monday or Tuesday's show. Like, he's like, what does MicroStrategy do? You know, like, we know they're a software company, like, we know they offer that, but like, what is their primary business function? They're really like functioning as like a leveraged play on Bitcoin, really. So how could this, you know, company that came out of nowhere, you know, literally kind of flatlined for 20 years, is outcompeting the top 7 tech companies in the world? And the answer is simple. They've just adopted a Bitcoin strategy. So this is really, really exciting times, because this is going to make number go up like crazy. Anyways, guys, before we get to numbers.
Wait, Nico, before you go on, I think I do want to add a little context, because you did kind of say that why didn't the CEO of Microsoft, you know, already embrace Bitcoin? To be completely clear, CEO, what's his name? Satya Nadella, forgive me, bro. We know he is a Bitcoiner. We know he's had these conversations with Bitcoin, but he owned approximately 0.1% of Microsoft shares. And if we look at who the biggest holders of Microsoft are and who these shareholders are, Vanguard's number one with 9% of the Microsoft shares, followed by BlackRock, State Street, and Fidelity. Now, if you add those up, BlackRock and Fidelity obviously are pro Bitcoin. They have Bitcoin ETFs. They do surpass Vanguard in shareholder percentage. And Vanguard, we all know the story with Vanguard. You know, the CEO basically resigned because they told, you know, this is the Bitcoin's view of this. The shareholder basically resigned because they famously came out and were like, we're not going to embrace the Bitcoin ETFs. And now they're paying for it. So yes, Vanguard's one of the biggest shareholders of Microsoft, but BlackRock and Fidelity do dwarf that voting percentage. So it is going to be interesting to see what the shareholders actually do coming up December 10th. But there is some interesting stuff playing out in real time, and we're going to see these conversations continue. Anyways, go, Nico.
Yeah, guys, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Guys, remember, Simply Bitcoin is fueled by our partners, and we're very specific on who we decide to partner with. So I want to tell you guys about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via Lightning in Canada or the USA. What makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other on-ramps is that it's a non-custodial automatic self-custody Bitcoin platform. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They don't even allow you to leave the Bitcoin on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. To get started, head over to bitcoinwell.com or scan the QR code on your screen. For higher net worth individuals that want a white glove tailored experience, who are looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, you could check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. It's Bitcoin Well's OTC desk. So why Bitcoin Well Infinite? If you're tired of dealing with Coinbase and that UI and just computers, and you hit up support, they don't really answer you, this is what Bitcoin Well Infinite is for. So you're going to have your personal representative you could always contact if you're interested in buying or selling Bitcoin, or if you have questions about the market or self-custody, this is the way for you. So to get started, you can either go to the website, bitcoinwell.com/OTC, or you can email me personally at nico@bitcoinwell.com, and I'll personally onboard you to Bitcoin Well Infinite. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points, and you could redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest for an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats every time you toss a coin into the well, which we're doing right now for you guys. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 500 sats. If you use promo code SIMPLYBTC, again, SIMPLYBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's move on to numbers. We have lots to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat, produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
Let's go, guys. Hey, there's over 2,000 of you guys watching. So I want to remind you to like, subscribe to the show if you like what we're doing. But also, wait, scan the QR code. Make sure you back up your seed phrase on something that is not going to get wrecked. And you can ensure that you are holding your generational wealth for the long haul, because it's going to be a long run. Anyways, Nico, get the chicken ready. Get the chicken ready. Of course, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard, and the current Bitcoin price is $97,810. Let's go. Honestly, dude, it should just be, let's go. We made it. Okay, the sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, is currently at 1,022. It looks like we might get under that 1,000 sats per dollar mark. It's getting crazy out there. The current Bitcoin block height is 871,369. The market cap in fiat terms for Bitcoin is $1.94 trillion. And the Bitcoin versus gold market cap, guys, it looks like we have secured the 10% of gold market cap. We are at 10.43%, and the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is currently at 94.21%, which means 19,785,314.86 Bitcoin are currently circulating. You might want to get some just in case it catches on, because it seems to be catching on. Okay, now moving forward. Of course, we got to bring up Jack Ballers. Jack Mallers, the CEO of Strike, he's making incredible appearances on the corporate press. And this one that he dropped this morning, I'm pretty sure it aired this morning, hits on something very, very important. And it's obviously in regards to the importance of the Bitcoin strategic reserve idea. And I really like how he framed this, of the financial significance of what this means for the world. And he lays out a little monetary history here on this. So let's play this and hear what Jack Ballers is saying.
I think the unique positioning on the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, I think if this happens, this will be one of the most important economic announcements in U.S. history. I think it'd be on par with 1971 and Nixon. However, what I think is not being talked about enough is it's positive, Caroline. It's positive.
Because you'd have to go out there and buy in the market, but will that actually happen?
No, my meaning is this. In 1933, the U.S. had a really big economic announcement. What was it? We're taking all your gold. In 1971, the U.S. had a really big economic announcement. What was it? We're divorcing ourselves from the gold standard so we can print money. In 2008, the U.S. had a really big economic announcement. What was it? It was we're bailing out all the big banks that misbehaved. In 2025, if the U.S. has a really big economic announcement, what is it? It's we're pro-technology, we're pro-innovation. What principles and morals and ethical alignment does Bitcoin have? Equal rights, equal opportunity, an open network. These are American ideals, American values. This is an asset that was accessible to the people 15 years ago that the people own. Governments only own 2, 3, 4% of this asset. This asset is held by the people. It acts in the best interest of the public. It's pro-jobs, it's pro-energy, it's pro-industry, it's pro-growth. And does anyone else have a plan to get us out of debt? Are we going to start a lemonade stand out here in Times Square? No, how about the best performing asset in the history of mankind? We lean into it, we buy it. Coinbase is an American company, Strike's an American company, Kraken's an American company, Tether sells the US dollar. Let's support these businesses. Let's support this industry.
But the market cap is less than NVIDIA for the entire crypto ecosystem. When does that become bigger?
I think when people buy it, listen, I think that ego gets in the way of many people. People think they're late to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, right? I think that late according to who? Oh, because you're comparing yourself to Michael Saylor, you're comparing yourself to your college roommate, you're comparing yourself to your coworker. Over the last 15 years, the best thing you could have done is buy Bitcoin. And I think that's going to be true for the next 1,500 years. And so as a country, I think we have a choice. I think everyone else around the world is understanding we are pro-growth, pro-business, pro-Bitcoin as this new administration takes office. And we have to make a decision. I think the worst thing we can do is not own enough. And actually, to de-risk this, we should buy some and push these American ideals in technology and innovation and growth through the best performing asset and technology in mankind.
Who has the answers to get us out of debt? I think it's only Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners are the only one that truly understand what's going on in the traditional financial world, and everyone else is sleepwalking. They're all looking at the new paradigm that, of course, is Bitcoin with the old paradigm lens. And this is probably why they're so hesitant to adopt Bitcoin. Obviously, a lot of us here as like retail, we've been outsiders to the traditional financial system. Most of us probably, weren't able to benefit from the Cantillon effect. Most of us aren't close to the money printer, hence why I think it was so easy for us to understand what's going on in Bitcoin. But you're seeing that the dinosaurs are fighting Bitcoin. And I really love how, Jack Mahlers, aka Jack Ballers out there, just, slyly dropped some monetary history on him. Hey, he didn't hit 1930, but 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. 1933, 6102, 1971, we got cut off from the gold standard. 2008, we literally bailed out all the banks. Remember, too big to fail. And now, if it does play out like we think it's going to, I haven't checked the Polymarket ads the Polymarket odds this morning, but it does seem to be inching upwards into whether the U.S. is going to adopt a Bitcoin reserve strategy. But if this does take place, then 2025 is going to be one of those huge economic moments. That's going to be one of those dates that we can, point back to and be like, yeah, this is finally where things started to change. And, I just love how Jack Mahlers is continuing to go out there and hit on this idea of ego. There is so many people out there that their ego gets the best of them. What do we say all the time? Bitcoin is an ego test. Stay humble, stack sat, stay solvent. This is how you understand and succeed in Bitcoin. Because if you think you are smarter by a half, as Greg Foss says all the time, then it's very easy for you to overlook Bitcoin. You're just like, oh, it's internet nerd money, it's for criminals, it's for drug dealers, it's for financial. I don't even know if I can say the T word anymore on here on YouTube. But it's starting to become very obvious to anyone that takes the time to understand Bitcoin that this is the asset that you need to have on your balance sheet on a corporate level and on a personal level, on a nation state level, and on a small business level. Every single person needs to hold Bitcoin because, as Jack Mahler said, it's the best performing asset the last 15 years, and it's only going to continue and be the best performing asset for the foreseeable future. We are in a digital age. We are in an age that is built on the internet. We're never going to go back to a world without internet. So it's very obvious to us Bitcoiners from this side of the fence to be like, it's a no-brainer to have a native internet currency, a native internet money. And of course, that is Bitcoin. And it's slowly but surely starting to make waves in the minds of the people, the powers that be that are out there. We've seen them fight us, and now we're seeing them also embrace us, which does make me feel a little weird because I've been a contrarian my whole life that now when we get embraced, it's like, wait, hold on. Where's the psyop here? Are we keeping our head on a swivel? Is Bitcoin going to be able to maintain its freedom money status? Or is Wall Street trying to co-opt this beautiful thing that we know Bitcoin to be? And this is why we constantly show and share to people that, hey, if you are, more advanced in Bitcoin, you want to run a node, you need to take that into personal custody. You need to Uncle Jim your friends and family to ensure that the Bitcoin rules are followed so that they can't co-opt the network. And that's the most important thing going up. Yes, number go up is great. And obviously, I can't wait to see a huge first world country embrace Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet. But there is a lot of things to keep in mind moving forward because Bitcoin is here. Everyone is starting to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has moved into the public consciousness, and now it's a legitimate conversation that people have to have. And if 2025 is the year that the U.S. puts Bitcoin on its balance sheet, strategic stockpile, whatever the meme they want to call it, it's going to fundamentally change the course of financial history and also enable America to maintain its position as, the leader of the world, maybe even maintain the fiat's world currency status or the dollar's world currency status, which, we can argue about whether that's good or not. But everyone is incentivized to use Bitcoin now because it's becoming very obvious that Bitcoin is not only the superior asset, but the best money in the world. And now people are waking up to this. So 2025 might be a very important year for not only as Bitcoiners, but for the world.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely massive. Jack Mallers just going on legacy media and just doing what Jack Mallers just does best. It's just straight up ball. He was wearing Converse. I don't know if anyone noticed that. But yeah, I mean, you know, this could be a real thing. I was just taking a look at the poly market odds while Opti was talking. It hit a high of 48%. We're almost at 50% in terms of Trump making Bitcoin a strategic reserve. Now, it is an uphill battle a little bit in the Senate, right? The Republicans only really have a 53 seat majority in the Senate, and the House, like it's like 3 or 4 seats that they have. So it has to be a little bit bipartisan. They have to reach across the aisle and get some Democratic senators to sign up to the strategic reserve. Trump can do it via executive order, but again, that's only temporary. As soon as the next president gets sworn into office, he can just reverse the whole Trump strategy. So just to kind of give you guys a quick recap, what he said in Nashville, he essentially promised that under his presidency, the United States would not sell any more of their Bitcoin, but to make it a strategic reserve or a stockpile, they would need to go through Congress. So there needs to be some type of bipartisanness that is going to be proposed. The country did give him a mandate with this, a popular election victory, and also control of the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. But what I will say also is that it will reveal who stands where. Right. I don't know if you guys remember, but the Republicans tried passing an anti-central bank digital currency bill, and it was very partisan in terms of who voted who voted for what. The Democratic Party, again, not all of them, but by and large, voted against a bill that would essentially make it illegal for a central bank digital currency in the United States, right? And then, of course, we all remember Elizabeth Warren and her hostility towards Bitcoin. In my opinion, I think that they do want to create some type of central bank digital currency monopoly. So will they be able to kind of reach a bipartisan agreement to really get this through not only the House, but also the Senate, and then eventually land on Trump's desk so he can sign it into law? I don't know. We shall see. I think he's definitely going to give it a try, but whether it gets passed or not, whether it gets passed into law, I think it's really going to expose who in the legislative branch is against Bitcoin, is against this movement. And this last election, guys, we won 48 out of the 48 elections for pro-Bitcoin candidates. So make no mistake, Bitcoiners are part of the donor class in Washington, and our influence is going to continue to grow by the day. And if it doesn't work out on the federal level, we all have to remember too, Dennis Porter has been doing incredible work on the state level to really push forward this idea of a strategic reserve. In the legislative branch, the legislation in Pennsylvania, there was a representative that introduced a bill that would essentially allow the state of Pennsylvania to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve asset on the state level. And now, if that happens, you have competition. And also, according to Dennis Porter, this was breaking news that happened when we were at the Adopting Bitcoin conference. Apparently, there's 10 other states that are looking to follow in the footsteps of Pennsylvania. And then we saw a back and forth between Dennis and Senator Cynthia Lummis on X, where essentially Cynthia Lummis was saying, hey, the federal government has to get its act together or we might get left behind by the states. And then if this happens, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to start to see a domino effect like no other on an international level, where you're going to see multiple countries piling into Bitcoin for fear of getting left behind on a competitive and a strategic level by the United States. So this is very exciting. This is Bitcoin's incentives playing out in real time. This is what Max Kaiser called the global hash war. It's a race to get as much Bitcoin as humanly possible, not only on the international stage, also on the corporate stage, and also on the individual stage. And what's really awesome about this, guys, is that there's only 21 million Bitcoin. So it's going to get absolutely bananas. I'm really, really excited. Something that I tweeted out yesterday was that essentially, like, I think if we break 100K this year, and I mean, we were very close. We hit 98K.
We might break 100K today, Nico.
Yeah. So if we break 100K this year, I think that there's a very high probability that we're going to blow past 200K next year, because you're just telling me 100, like a 2X, like in a year, like on the mania year, because, you know, the mania year is the year after the halving year. You know, I think Bitcoin tends to do the exact opposite of what everyone thinks. I think we're going to have a great 2025, especially with all these things happening in the background. It's extremely exciting. Anyways, guys, let's get to the news. We have lots to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go.
Very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin.
All right, everybody, you can scan the QR code right now on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Foundation Devices website, and you can use promo code SIMPLY to get a discount. It does not come with Opti, but it is an incredible gift to give to someone that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody. You can get them a Passport. It doesn't sacrifice security for convenience. Guys, remember, not your keys, not your cheese. You want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. All right, let's get to the news.
All righty then, guys. So we do have a saga for you guys. Remember, Nico, I think, might have been one of the first ones to say this, that I remember saying that essentially in 2021, when we got the China ban of Bitcoin mining, etc., that we saw the Bitcoin price basically crumble. Well, you know, this is old. This is the old headline. So some saga here. China's been banning Bitcoin in the past, of course, declares all cryptocurrency transactions illegal. And then just showing you the chart here of the China mining ban. You can see here in the dots is where the hash rate left China when they hit that ban, and it dipped. And you can see that that was basically the end of the 2021 bull market. And then, of course, it recovered, and now we're at all-time high hash rate, and the price is at all-time high as well, which just goes to show that Bitcoin never dies. It just continues to go on. Now, part of this saga we've been covering this this year is that slowly but surely we've been seeing that China is kind of doing a backflip on this. They're kind of, turning around their rhetoric in regards to Bitcoin. Of course, the first news that came out this year was that Hong Kong announced a spot Bitcoin ETF. Obviously, mainland and Hong Kong are different entities, but as Nico was kind of mentioning, it's kind of a soft launch of China's take on Bitcoin and how they're slowly but surely embracing Bitcoin. And we saw that the numbers responded very quickly. Bitcoin spot ETF in Hong Kong hit $2 billion literally days after it launched. And so you can see that, of course, there is not only a need, but a want for Bitcoin in China. And we're seeing that it seems like the executive class, the government out there is starting to change course on Bitcoin. We did get a kind of rumor from David Bailey that apparently the CCP legislature that proposed the China mining Bitcoin ban was fired recently. So is this trends of what's going on? We don't really know. Obviously, we're in the US. We're just kind of following the news as it comes along. But we did get an interesting story come out yesterday in regards to what is happening in China. So we have a Shanghai court saying that crypto ownership now is legal under China law amid the Bitcoin price surge. So in a recent lawsuit, a Shanghai judge wrote that cryptocurrencies, and remember, if you guys been watching the show for a while, when you hear people from China say cryptocurrencies, it's kind of that like cover. It's like that, octopus ink squid where they say crypto, but really they mean Bitcoin. Anyways, have the attributes of property and thus holding it is legal. So in a Shanghai court, they released an opinion stating that the personal ownership of cryptocurrencies is not against Chinese law, offering explicit legal clarity for crypto holders on the mainland amid the price run-up. Soon Jay, a judge at the Shanghai Songjiang People's Court, wrote in an article published on Shanghai HIVE People's Court official WeChat account this week that, quote, "It is not illegal for individuals to hold cryptocurrency, even though Chinese business entities are not allowed to take part in cryptocurrency investments or token issuance, quote, at will." The comments were part of a case review for a recent lawsuit involving disputes between two companies about an initial coin offering, which is considered illicit financing in China. Going on a little bit, I can't show the screen, but this is the article here. Beijing sees cryptocurrencies as a threat to financial stability, and commercial activity related to these assets remains banned on the mainland, which has put their legal standing in doubt. As a virtual commodity with the attributes of property, cryptocurrency ownership is not prohibited by Chinese law, Sun wrote. This does not extend to businesses, however, as it can disrupt economic and financial order or act as a payment for illegal activities, according to the judge. And the last quote, that is why laws and regulations always maintain a high pressure crackdown on speculative activities in cryptocurrency trading. So you can see that slowly but surely the rhetoric and the narrative around Bitcoin is starting to change, even in China, where, of course, this is a court. It's not coming down from the CCP, higher ups, but you're seeing that slowly but surely they are changing their tune. I mean, I forget how many times China has banned Bitcoin at this point. I think it's like 180 or no, that's the obituaries. I think it's like 7. I like to say 180, but you can see that for the longest time in Bitcoin, even when I got into Bitcoin, China banned Bitcoin like 5-6 times. And now it's been like a meme that every time China bans Bitcoin, that's where the meme came out that you can't ban Bitcoin. You can only ban yourself from Bitcoin. And even when China did the mining Bitcoin ban, I forget, I was someone on the show, and I'm blanking on the name, Nico. But someone came on the show and said something very interesting, that yes, the government may have banned Bitcoin, but they don't talk about what they, and this is kind of like the verbatim quote, like they don't talk about what they put under their mattress. And when he was saying that, he was talking about Bitcoin, is that a lot of the people in China obviously love Bitcoin. They see the tech future that is Bitcoin and what it will allow. And even though the government is fighting Bitcoin, all of the mining in China didn't up and leave. And all of the holders in China didn't sell their Bitcoin. They're still hodling their Bitcoin. But the panic, that narrative of Bitcoin mining being shut down, it did affect the last bull run. Now it seems in this bull run, this is kind of why we keep saying this time might be different. Not only is it ETFs and the acceptance from corporations and even the conversation from the US about a Bitcoin strategic reserve, But we've seen all of the crazy over leveraging of like the FTX and the Celsius, the Mt. Gox coins. Those are all been cleared out. It looks like Bitcoin has a incredible launching pad for 2025. And now if we see the game theory start to play out, because we've been hearing grumblings about this as well, because ever since Trump kind of announced that he's embracing Bitcoin, he wants to make America the crypto hub of the world, you're seeing that other leaders from other nations are having to very quickly pivot on their Bitcoin stance. And of course, this is coming from a Shanghai court, so it's not coming from, you know, the heads of the CCP in China, but you're seeing that now you're basically, you know, setting yourself up for disaster if you're going to continue to fight when America seemingly is going to embrace Bitcoin and Russia's basically embracing Bitcoin. And so you're seeing the game theory play out, or what's Kaiser always call the hash war playing out in real time, where if you're not embracing Bitcoin or looking at Bitcoin legitimately, then you're really shooting yourselves in the foot, and you're setting up not only your government but your citizens to become second-class citizens. If your country embraces Bitcoin, then like we've been saying the whole show, that is a cheat code to continue to propel yourself forward into the 21st century. And so it's upon all of the corporate CEOs and executive suites to embrace Bitcoin. It's upon all of the nation states to legitimately look at Bitcoin, even though it does kind of, you know, lessen their power. This is the Trojan horse of freedom after all. And so even with that being said, they have to embrace Bitcoin. Obviously, as an individual, we always recommend you embrace Bitcoin. We all, you know, quote unquote, hashtag front ran Wall Street. We've front ran the nation states. And this is the beauty of Bitcoin. It's literally a cheat code. You just need to understand what Bitcoin is enough so that you can buy Bitcoin, store Bitcoin, and use Bitcoin, because it's becoming very obvious that this next end of this decade, going into 2030, there's going to be two classes of people here. Those that embrace Bitcoin and those that don't. Or as Nico always says, Bitcoin or slavery. You're either a Bitcoiner or you're a CBDC maxi. And it seems like we are at the fork in the road. And again, I think this is going to set up an incredible 2025 bull run. Like Nico just said, you know, we're basically at 100K today. It's at 98 right now. You know, we're another all-time high as the show goes on. If we get 100K by the end of this year, like 200K, that seems like peanuts in regards to what Bitcoin bull runs are like. So it's going to get crazy. The price is probably going to run at an incredible pace. We're going to see incredible announcements of huge people, CEOs, and nations adopting Bitcoin in 2025. And again, just kind of circling back to what Jack Mallers said, you know, 2025 is looking like it's going to go down as one of the dates that change financial history. And it looks like China, you know, even though it's on a court level, they're starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, maybe we can't no longer fight Bitcoin. It's very obviously property. It's not an illegal thing. Maybe we kind of have to embrace this begrudgingly. Remember, even when Gary Gensler released the Bitcoin spot ETFs, he was kind of fighting it, and he taught a class at MIT. So it looks like everyone is slowly but surely bending the knee to Bitcoin. Of course, these are just the breadcrumbs until these big final announcements come out. But again, I think 2025 is just, it's really blowing my mind, Nico. It really does feel like this time is different. So what's your thoughts on this Shanghai court ruling? And of course, you were on the beat. I think you might've been the first one talking about the China mining ban stopping the Bitcoin bull run of 2021. And this time for 2025, it seems like most of that FUD and uncertainty and all of the crazy speculations and over leveraging is completely cleared out. So it looks like the rocket ship is being fueled and ready to blast off, Nico.
Yeah, I mean, it's like another example of the kind of Microsoft, CEO. Like, everyone eventually bows down to the king, and the king, of course, is Bitcoin. And, you know, China's no different. Microsoft, they have to do it because, you know, again, they want to be competitive as a company. They have to provide shareholder value. On an international scale, like, China sees the United States as a competitor. And if the United States is gaining an edge over China because they're adopting a Bitcoin strategy, you know, the Chinese government has no choice but to change their stance on Bitcoin. And it seems like that's the case here. It's not surprising, like, whatsoever. And eventually, you know, every country or any individual, eventually you bow down to the king, because number go up technology is irresistible. You can't deny it. Like I love when central bankers like Bitcoin isn't money, and it's like, yeah, well, I'm looking at the price and it's at $98,155 right now. The market is deciding that Bitcoin is money. You don't get to decide what money is. The market gets to decide what money is. And the market is speaking. So, number go up eventually makes everyone bow down. And you either get on the train and you start benefiting from Bitcoin, or you get left behind. Now, the problem for a lot of these totalitarian governments is, and Alex Godstein wrote an excellent article, like kind of referencing this stuff, called "Bitcoin is a Trojan Horse for Freedom." Like, problem is, like, they want to benefit from number go up, but they don't want the freedom go up that goes along with it. So, they want to benefit from it, but they don't want to give their citizens the freedoms that Bitcoin gives, So you kind of see a lot of these totalitarian countries, whether it's China or Russia, the way that they kind of phrase the laws, it's funny. It's like, you can only mine with government approval, or, you can't, you could buy it on exchange, but you can't take self-custody. So it's stuff like that. And you're going to start to see that as time progresses, because, and you saw this in the United States, right? Thankfully, we had a positive election for the industry in terms of the regulatory environment, but you saw this in the United States as they tried to attack Bitcoin self-custody. And we say it in the beginning of the show when we were talking about Bitcoin, like, self-custody is the revolution. Self-custody is what is going to fundamentally change the world, because it separates money from state. And if you have 5, 10, 15% of the population holding their wealth in an undebasable currency that is censorship resistant, that gives those individuals a tremendous amount of power. And I think that's what governments are fundamentally afraid of. As much as they pose that, we're governments by the people, for the people. No. I think fiat has Frankenstein that, and it's really made it governments by the government, for the government. And until we separate money from state, that's always going to be the case, in my opinion. And this is really where Bitcoin changes things. But this is the genius of Satoshi when he created, Bitcoin the way he did, and the way that it's structured with the halving that causes a supply shock that makes the number go up with Bitcoin's absolute scarcity, is that even if you're the most totalitarian, evil regime in the world, you cannot resist Bitcoin's number go up incentives. And this is why we said this so many times on Simply Bitcoin, I'm more bullish on incentives than I am on coercion. And I think that's why fundamentally in the long run, Bitcoin will win. Anyways, I do want to
wait, Nico, hold on. Sorry. Breaking news. Gary Gensler is officially stepping down January 20th, 2025. Absolutely incredible. We were hearing rumors about it, and now it's official. It's official on Twitter. Wow, Nico. Maybe 2025 is going to be a lit year.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to front run the "you're fired" by Trump. And he wrote a giant thread as to kind of justifying why he's doing it. He doesn't want to get fired. I don't blame him, but I think Gary Gensler did a terrible job. It was extremely political, his stint in government. And I think that, the release of the ETF was completely botched. It was like his account got hacked. It was like, yeah, the ETF is approved. And then he said, no, it wasn't approved. And then the next day it was approved. And you just saw the price of Bitcoin fluctuate because of that. Like, it's like the SEC's job is to stop people from manipulating the market, but they themselves manipulated the market by taking such a political stance. So, this is great. This is why this election, we got so much heat on the show for talking about it. This election was so important because of the regulatory consequences that it was going to have for the Bitcoin industry in the United States. And I believe a lot of this pump that you're seeing is a Trump pump. I believe, Gary Gensler quitting, that is because Trump is going to be sworn into office in January 20th. So yeah, very, very exciting stuff overall. But anyways, guys, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor. Of course, I am am talking about HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable computing. Gotta also casually drop this in here. HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. They're also a publicly traded company, as I've said. You can check them out on the NASDAQ at HIVE. Anyways, guys, I also do want to give a very special shout out to one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, BitBlockBoom. It's a true Bitcoin conference. It's only Bitcoin. And it's going to be 4 days this year, April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, and April 6th. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas. The whole Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. Opti, Rustin, myself, Dante. It's going to be absolutely awesome. The speakers, the year of the mania phase. It's going to be a Bitcoin celebration you don't want to miss out. The barbecue, the side events. Guys, this is the Bitcoin conference you want to make in 2025. Get your tickets now by scanning the QR code or check the link in the video description. And you can use promo code BBB21. Again, BBB21 to get $100 off your tickets. All right, everybody, let's hit the culture. We have lots to talk about today. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Guys, usually what tends to happen when you're traveling, you're on the go, and you don't know anyone around you. You don't know how to connect with them. The Orange Pill app is for you. You pull up the Orange Pill app, has a really clever geographical feature, and it will show you the Bitcoiners that are near you, and it will give you the capability to send them a message directly so that you can connect with them. Join the 13,912 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. The Orange Pill app is the #1 Bitcoin events app as well. So again, if you're traveling for a conference, perhaps the conference is only 2 days, but you're in town for 7 days, pull up the Orange Pill app and it will show you the Bitcoin events near you. To get started, scan the QR code on your screen or check the link in the video/podcast description. Anyways, I want to kind of open up the conversation and double back to what we were talking about in terms of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Also the probability of it happening. So before I do that, I have a video of Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator of Wyoming, on Legacy Media talking about just that. Let's check it out.
Is the proposal that I have and that President Trump has discussed about a strategic Bitcoin reserve or strategic Bitcoin stockpile, where the United States would acquire and hold Bitcoin for 20 years. Because of the way that Bitcoin has been appreciating since inception, this would be an asset that could help shore up the US dollar as the world reserve currency and serve as a reserve that could be used to reduce the national debt significantly. You know, the American people are still hurting from inflation, from high prices, and they want the national debt reduced. These are ways to do it with an asset that is immutable, can easily be held by the federal government in a variety of vaults, and that states can participate in as well. So this is the gold standard digital asset, and a strategic Bitcoin reserve is the way to embed it.
You know, we got off the gold standard a long time ago. My question is how much you would spend tax dollars at a time when we're talking about trying to reduce costs. How much would you spend on Bitcoin as part of this reserve?
We wouldn't have to spend any new dollars. We have reserves at our 12 Federal Reserve banks, including gold certificates that could be converted to current fair market value. They're held at their 1970s value on the books. and then sell them into Bitcoin. That way, we wouldn't have to use any new dollars in order to establish this reserve. The United States already holds over 200,000 Bitcoin in the asset forfeiture funds. So that would be the initial source of Bitcoin. So no new money spent on this reserve.
So let's talk about the probability of this actually happening. Adam Back earlier on the week said that if this were, he could foresee a 7-figure Bitcoin. By the way, I completely agree with him. Like I said, guys, this would start a domino effect of just massive FOMO, but it's not retail, it's not institutions. Nation states with money printers. Money printers go burr, and they use that burr money to buy Bitcoin. It would be bananas. Anyways, you think the MicroStrategy stock going crazy right now is interesting? Could you imagine when nation states start competing for 21 million Bitcoin? It's going to be insane. I don't think that this is a question of if it will happen. I think it's a question of when it will happen. According to Polymarket is a betting odds website, just a betting website. They were extremely accurate in predicting the 2024 election, much more than the pollsters. It reached an all-time high, really, I mean, in the beginning, but I think this is just the launch of it. But essentially, it reached an all-time high of Trump creating a national Bitcoin reserve, and it hit a peak of 48 cents. So almost a 58% probability. It reached that at 10 a.m. this morning. Now it's back down to around 39%. But as you can see, it's been ticking up, and I'm sure this has a lot to do with Senator Cynthia Lummis doing the rounds on legacy media, and of course, Jack Mallers talking about it publicly as well. Guys, I truly believe in memeing something into existence. We have memed the Bitcoin price to where it is today. Memes are extremely powerful. And the reason I'm saying this is the more we talk about it, the more we make noise about it, the higher the probability of it becoming actually real. Because at the end of the day, politicians, they don't do stuff just out of the goodness of their heart. They do stuff because they think they're going to get reelected, or they think that what they're doing is popular. So the more that they see that we're actually very serious about this, number one, free Ross, after that, this becoming a strategic reserve, the higher probability of it becoming reality. And one last thing I'll say is, this is bullish for price. I would say bearish for revolution. Ideally, you want individuals holding Bitcoin. The more individuals in terms of the percentage of individuals taking self-custody within a nation state, the better it is for Bitcoin. So the better it is for freedom in general. We want smaller government. We want less control of government over our lives. And the way that you do that is by taking sovereignty back and taking the funding mechanism of government. And the funding mechanism of government, it's not taxation, because they spend a lot more than they collect in tax revenue every year. It is the money printer. And the way that we kind of just end that whole shenanigan peacefully is by individuals opting out of fiat money entirely. And, fiat money loses its power if people aren't using it. If people don't use fiat, like the reason the US government is able to print as much money as they do is because it is a global reserve currency. Zimbabwe tried to do the same thing, and they ended up with $100 trillion bill, like hyperinflation. Venezuela tried to do the same thing. Argentina tried to do the same thing. You see this over and over again when governments truly believe they could just hit the money printer and, everything's fine and dandy. No, the reason the US government's able to do this is because the dollar is in such high demand. If the dollar starts to decrease in demand and Bitcoin starts to increase in demand, then it kind of acts like a check. Right? It forces the government to take control of the spending. Now, here's the thing. And I applaud Elon and Vivek for the so-called the Doge, the government efficiency office or whatever. They're going to go in there and they're going to try to cut federal spending by $2 trillion. Here's the thing. I think that is a half measure at best. I would never bet against Elon. I mean, the guy invented self-driving cars and self-landing rockets, but at the same time, that's 4 years. 4 years, you have another election, right? Who's to say that you don't have the opposite of Vivek and Elon going in there and saying, you know what? Hey guys, you tried, this is great, and we're right back at where we started. The problem is the fact that the government has this unique ability of being able to create money for free that the rest of us have to work for. And that causes a tremendous amount of injustice, and it enables theft by the state, and it disproportionately affects the lower and middle classes the most, because the lower and middle classes are the classes that don't have the means to save in assets. Therefore, when the government prints money, they don't benefit from asset inflation. Inflation is one of the most insidious, evil taxes the world has ever seen, because it affects people that need money the most, which is the lower and middle class. So anyways, very bullish on this strategic reserve. It's being talked about, but I mean, Senator Cynthia Lummis, to give her credit, she has introduced a bill. It was bipartisan with Senator Gillibrand, the regulatory bill. That bill never got anywhere, right? So, you know, how much is Trump going to be able to do from the executive branch? Does he have the necessary support in the Senate and in the House? We shall see. According to Polymarket, they give it a 30% chance or so. I wouldn't even give it that high. I would say it's going to be very, 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 very difficult. Anyways, Opti, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I am a little conflicted on the Bitcoin reserve strategy. On the one hand, I love it because it's obviously kicking off the nation state FOMO. You know, the global hash war, it's happening right now. And you're seeing that ever since that announcement has came out, it is obviously making ripples and waves around the world. Now everyone kind of has to take Bitcoin seriously. And if you don't, well, you know, if you're not the first mover, then you're absolutely getting wrecked. And this is what we're seeing play out. So on that level, I truly love that the conversation around Bitcoin has fundamentally changed. And so I'm, you know, a huge supporter of that happening. And we also knew that this was going to happen, right? Like if you've been in Bitcoin long enough, as the meme goes, Bitcoin is for enemies. We knew that it wasn't just going to be individuals, that it was going to be corporations and institutions and nation states eventually FOMOing into Bitcoin. And maybe I am kind of being a little bit of a hypocrite here, because I was applauding when El Salvador announced Bitcoin legal tender and them kind of adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So like I knew it was going to happen, but as we see the US do it, yes, this is a good thing for the narrative shift or the rhetoric around Bitcoin. But I'm also here, and one of the things that kind of got me to Bitcoin in the first place is just understanding how the fiat system works, and legitimately just thinking that it is very nefarious by its nature. You know, the Federal Reserve created in 1913, literally under the cover of night, pushed through Congress over a holiday weekend. And ever since then, for the last 100 years, we've been using a money that is literally designed to steal from us. And it's got us into this perpetual debt slavery. And this is why, as a Bitcoiner, I do think that fundamentally, you know, on a long enough time frame, that Bitcoin will surpass the fiat dollar. Now, with that being said, if the U.S. does add Bitcoin to their reserve strategy stockpile, et cetera, it kind of seems to me like it's going to fundamentally keep the fiat dollar around longer. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? Personally, that's not really what I'm here for. I think, you know, as we've been saying for a long time, and Nico always quotes this better, but I think it was Ron Paul that said, like, it is no coincidence that the last 100 year, the year of fiat money, is the bloodiest century. And so, you know, seeing the U.S. embrace Bitcoin, I think this is good for the number go up aspect. It's good for the rhetoric and the maturity of Bitcoin as an asset and a money, and now people have to take Bitcoin seriously. And so on that note, I obviously think it's a good thing. Now, on the perpetuation of the dollar, the fiat money system, it does make me feel a little weird, to be honest, because I think Bitcoin is superior money. I think on a long enough time frame, Bitcoin will surpass the dollar. And adding Bitcoin to the treasury, it feels like it's kind of continuing to give life to the dollar. So that is kind of my concern. And on the next part, like we've said it before about Bhutan and El Salvador, that they're the only two countries in the world that have acquired their Bitcoin without violence and theft. And all of the Bitcoin that the U.S. government holds, it's basically been stolen from individuals. And now if they do, switch that and add it to their reserve strategy, they get to profit off of it. I don't know. It makes me feel a little weird on that regard. But on the flip side, essentially, and Saylor tweeted this morning, sell the old and buy the future. And I think this is where we are right now. The dinosaurs out there, the traditional financial world, the old paradigm is starting to wake up to a new paradigm, which is Bitcoin. And if they want to stay ahead, if they want to at least maintain their lead in regards to world reserve currency status, their lead in regards to first world countries, like they're going to have to embrace Bitcoin. Just period. Like they have to embrace Bitcoin. And if they do it correctly and essentially, minimize all of the regulatory obstacles that Bitcoiners have had to hula hoop through and jump through for the last couple of years, I think that is going to benefit American citizens. And then as that ripples out, every other country that embraces Bitcoin and has more of a like laissez-faire mentality in regards to Bitcoin and just treats it as money, that's going to obviously not only increase the purchasing power of the citizens, but it will also increase what we like to call, freedom go up technology as well. So on the one hand, on the number go up side, yes, I think this is a good thing. It's going to pump our bags. And if the U.S. government eventually starts printing money to buy Bitcoin, like not only are they going to ensure their own demise by devaluing the fiat dollar, but the Bitcoin price is going to go up. So it's like, it's kind of one of those like stuck in a hard, rock in a hard place right now, where it's like, we knew this was going to happen. Will they go so far as to print money to buy Bitcoin? We're not there yet, but I think with them changing their view on Bitcoin and kind of looking at it as a legitimate thing to hold in people's portfolios, or rather to use as money, the conversation has fundamentally shifted, and now everyone has to take Bitcoin seriously. So on the one hand, number go up is going to continue to go up, and probably more than we can even imagine, because we still have kind of PTSD from the last bull run. But with that, I think comes that Trojan horse of freedom, where if more people are using Bitcoin, actually using Bitcoin and not like a ETF product or, a product like MicroStrategy just getting exposure to the price, and people use Bitcoin, then it's an unstoppable train, and more people will get onto freedom money, and then we can actually secure and do what Satoshi set out to do in the first place, is to usher in a new hard money standard that also with it comes, censorship resistant, something that cannot be debased. And with that, I think we will see a new, I don't know if you can call it a second renaissance or whatever, but we will see a new glory age on planet Earth, and I'm here for it.
100%. 100%. Anyways, guys, we are getting to the top of the hour. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. Again, guys, we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.